I'm Steve Brady, the Executive Director at the Covation Center, and it's always a pleasure to go talk to business owners, especially ones that have gone through our program at the Covation Center and our Masterclass program. I'm here today at Tria Prima with Ingrid, the owner, or co-owner with your husband. I'm not sure how that works.
I'm the queen, no. Yeah, I am still currently the owner. He's awesome. my support system for sure.
Awesome. Now, what got you into, what is Tria Prima? We'll start with that. And what got you into thinking that this is a business you wanted to have?
Because it didn't happen overnight. There was a pretty good long year of building up what this would be. And it sort of veered off to the side. But we started to think a lot about how we can address all aspects of the human experience in the sense of the physical and the body, and then the mind and also the spirit. And the mission of that came out of my background in herbalism. And I've been practicing community herbalist since 2013. And prior to that, I was on the path for studying and practicing holistic ways of healing and health.
So you have a passion for health and health through herbs and other types of things like that?
Yeah, and personally because I've seen it work so well in my own life with the health challenges I've had, especially an autoimmune condition that I've had to cope with for a number of years, and which doctors didn't seem to have a lot of answers for. So the path to herbalism gave me an opportunity to think about healing that disease state and becoming well again and feeling like myself.
So how do you transition from caring about this and caring about people for that type of mission, if you will, to opening a storefront in downtown Williamsport and selling what? How do you go from one point to the other?
So the first year that I was practicing community herbalist, I just decided to start to go to shows, events, vending events, and I would pack up all my little tea blends and bags and take them to these events. And I could experiment with different kinds of herbal products and see which ones people liked the best. And what always ended up happening was the tea was the big seller. It's accessible, it's safe, it's easy to prepare, and it's something people really understand because most people have been drinking tea their whole lives. So
even before coffee.
Yeah, it's still actually the most imbibed beverage in the world. It's above coffee because of its international.
It's the gateway drug to coffee. I'm pretty sure.
And to healing and health.
There we go. We got to.
Yeah. So we would go to these shows, and it got a little bit draining sometimes, and I had to keep a full-time job on the side, and I just sort of started to pivot. That's where I first learned about the concept of pivoting. And I actually opened a small apothecary out of a room in our home that was easily accessible and people didn't have to come into the rest of the house. And when I would have little shows and I would make samples, and mostly they would happen around holidays. And we really started to bring in a customer base that felt really comfortable and good. And so once my husband hopped on board, we started to talk a lot about how can we diversify and get this to a larger, portion of our community, because at the foundation, that's who we wanted to serve, was our community. And we were learning very quickly who in our community needed us.
Well, I like that. So as we talk about starting a business, and we have start a small business series here on YouTube, for those that haven't seen it yet, we talk about the fact that you may have a vision for something and a passion for it, and you did the market research, so you knew that you had a community out there that would be willing to buy your product.
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends who I've been baking for a long time. So the herbs and the teas were a big piece, but my friends were really getting on me to do something with my skill set. And I had baked professionally when I was younger, going through college, and I loved it. And at one time had even tried to start a baking business, and that was long before the tea piece. And once the tea came in, it was like, well, people really need something to have with their tea, and what are you going to provide? And it was very small at first, and it's been because of COVID, and we all want comfort foods during this time, that the business, the baking portion of the business began to grow beyond what we expected. Also, because of COVID, the bakery piece is a little bit smaller than the tea piece, but we open for bakery sales Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Nice. And I started baking donuts on Saturdays, and they were just a hit.
I first learned about Tria Prima, I think fall of 19. I don't know, when did you open as a retail establishment?
We opened on August 1st of 2019, and we opened on a first Friday, and it was a pretty big deal. We were lined up from the back, which used to be open before COVID, all the way out the door. And it was really an exciting time. And then everything changed. And I feel like in some ways the business had its own mind. And I had known that that might happen from other people I've known in business, that it kind of becomes what it wants to be. And very quickly that happened. And we just basically grabbed on and held on. And then we hit March of 2020.
So you had August, September, October, November, December, January 1st. So you had 8 months.
Roughly.
I can count,
Yeah.
generally speaking. I have to use my fingers. You had about 8 months, and then COVID hit. And so you're a relatively new storefront. You'd had the things in your basement, in the apothecary at home.
Right.
We're sitting in your storefront again, and it's now 2021. So obviously you weathered the storm.
Yeah.
How did you do through 2020? How did you respond to the initial shutdown, for instance?
Yeah, we panicked. We were in a really vulnerable place because we were still trying to learn about what it meant to be in business and what that looked like in terms of the hierarchy and the bureaucracy that we would need to be a part of and play with, and follow the rules. And so we got to a point where we weren't even sure that we would be allowed to be open. And so just through some work and asking a lot of questions of people I know who know a lot more than I do, I wrote to the state and I asked to get a dispensation of some kind wherein we became an essential business. We were serving light food and beverages that gave us that ability. So until we got that approval, we switched to all local delivery. And I would say, when I say local delivery, that's basically Lycoming County. So my husband and I, one day we would pull in orders. We quick set up our website. It was very wonky and challenging, still is. But we would get orders, and one day a week we would pile into our little Subaru and drive all over Lycoming County delivering tea to people.
Well, the nice thing is there's a freshness that comes with having that delivered local. And in Lycoming County, for those that don't know Lycoming County, Pennsylvania, it's the size of Rhode Island, and we have 110,000 people living here. So you don't have a small customer base, and you don't need all 110,000 to stay in business, which is a nice thing too.
Yeah, and that's what we learned. It felt really daunting at first, like we wouldn't be able to pull it off. But what we found was that we had a really loyal base, and that's all we needed to get us through, to keep the roof over our head and the doors, the keys to the front door. Our landlord was very generous. And I feel like that was a huge piece for us. Was here we're living in this very small community, which can get a lot of flack sometimes for being small. But at the same time, the beauty of living in a small town is the ability to communicate with people very quickly and have your core group of people in your community that say, hey, you need some help, I want to help you. And our landlords were really gracious and generous that way. And then our customer base. People bought more tea than we had ever sold in those 8 months in a way, where it was just, and it was consistent. And we got a lot of feedback, like in these hard days, your tea delivery, gives me so much joy. And that quickly became a really big piece of our mission, that we want, as much as we want to, the backstory is health and well-being to what we're offering, is that we really could give people some joy at the product that we provide, and they get excited about it, and we do too. So we all feel good when we're here.
That's a good thing. And you went through our program. I believe you did the
Yes.
online version of it, right?
Yes, and it was an opportunity to really learn about a few things that we hadn't thought about. One of which was, I remember the conversation that we had during the cohort was about the culture of your business. And my husband and I took that for granted because it's just the two of us, and we chit and we chat, and we're always talking about what's going on, but we didn't think about what's going to happen after COVID. We're gonna need to grow. And so I started to work on our a little more beyond just the business plan, into creating the culture and the handbook and the bigger mission of what we were doing here. And among other things, the other thing that really helped so much was making sure that we understood what the cost of goods meant. And some of that paperwork around the finances, because we were so small to start, we could make a lot of mistakes and kind of catch them. But that wouldn't have been the case here now, a year later, where we really could have a lot of things slipping through the cracks. And so the structure of the Covation Center's workshop really gave us the opportunity to think about the structure of the business. So it really did, for me, have a big impact on what we would think about doing in the future. Because that was the rough part about COVID sometimes. Felt like nothing was we were sort of stuck in this black hole of doom and uncertainty, and you can't think about the future. What can we do today? So it gave me the ability to think about the day, what's happening now, and how will that impact what's coming, that we could stay open and continue to grow and then thrive instead of just surviving, which is what we did for a while. It was hard.
One of the things that we're most happy about is when we hear stories of businesses that took the things we talk about, and you're the hero. I mean, you're the one that took it and you did the things, right?
Yeah.
You understood your business and you did the work to help your business grow, and you say not just survive, but to thrive. So when you get to the end of 2020, because we measure things in fiscal years and the calendar year simultaneously, right?
Yes, learned that too.
You were August, October, you were 5 months in January of 2020. And then 12 months later, we had COVID, we had closures, we had all sorts of things. How did you do financially? Again, we're here in May and we're in your place. You stayed open, you paid rent. Unlike other businesses, you were able to survive and now thrive. How did you do that? What helped?
Unemployment. To be honest, the government helped. I never thought I'd hear those words much come out of my mouth, but they've come out several times. Because we were so short in, we had both had full-time jobs at different times, and we were able to, because of the new way of working, considering the shutdown, the government would go retroactive. When did you last work? What was your income? So we were able to collect some unemployment. I didn't pay myself for about 10 months. And without the unemployment, that would have been absolutely devastating to us. And we cut back. Like, we really went without, did what they say, buckled down, and we kept our overhead really low and our budget really tight, and we didn't offer all the things. We offered, this is a few things we can offer, and we just kept our noses down. We didn't look up too much, because it really would have it's kind of like, being on a roller coaster and all of a sudden your head's floating around. You shouldn't have looked up, just look down and straight ahead. And I had to remind myself to do that every day. We really didn't get grants in the first year. Things we applied for, we were told we didn't qualify. Fast forward in that realm, that's changed very dramatically. And this year we have qualified. So that's been huge to go without pay and have the business to then be able to have a PPP loan. And then there are some grants that are going out for cafes. We qualified for what's called the CHIRP grant. CHIRP program, right. And that's been really just put us in a different frame of mind that, okay, we can continue to grow and start over again in a way with some salary to support our own lives. Which is, because I think the sense of sacrifice we've heard so many times from other business owners. Oh, it's going to take 3 years, maybe 5. And we know that, but you have to eat. We can't eat the tea leaves. It
takes 3 or 5 years without COVID. And this may be an instance where COVID may have benefited you and helped you a little bit forward. And not just because of the programs from the government, but because your customers needed that extra comfort. Yes. Whether it was the comfort food of baked goods or the tea that can relieve anxiety and those sorts of things. Yeah. One of the things I hear consistently, and I've been visiting several businesses with our congressman the past few days, I've heard many businesses talk about the fact that our community here in Lycoming County has been so supportive of various businesses, whether it's T-shirts or restaurants or the jeweler or you guys. Yeah. And it's just a refreshing story to hear that our small community came together. What would you recommend to a business owner that either is coming out of COVID or is looking around going, do I want to start a business right now? What are like a couple of the things that they need to really focus in on?
The number one thing is to be brave. I think you it's so easy to get bogged down in the details. But if you really have a clear passion, something you really love or something you really want to do and you know that other people will benefit from it, then start taking the first steps. The second thing is know who your community is, know what's available. We really couldn't have done this without people like you and the program that you provide. I'm not giving lip service. It was such an overwhelming time. So to be able to get something that was structured and specific in a time of such uncertainty, it was so important and valuable. And I say I was a teacher. I wasn't a businesswoman. And so it's all new territory for me. And especially for women coming up who have kids at home, or maybe the kids are leaving and you want to make a change in your life, and you think you can't do it, just think again. Think about the resources that might be available in the community, and go after them. You might get told no sometimes, but I think at this time, considering what's occurred because of COVID, small businesses are really going to empower, in my opinion, communities to thrive. And so we need small businesses now more than ever. So why not, take a step into that world? But I also would always say, start small. Start with what you can do and what you do know, and then study the market and see what the market will bear.
Thank you for opening up the shop and letting us talk.
Yeah, thanks for asking. We're glad to have you here, and anything in the future, let us know.
One last thing. We include Tria Prima tea in our package when you sign up for the cohort program. So if you're curious what this is like, it's part of what you get with the package. Thanks for watching.